Hi there. Welcome to Have It All. I am your host and the creator, Anna K. Morris, and I'm thrilled that you're here because if you are here, it means that you're interested in having it all, or maybe you're curious about what I and my guests have to say about having it all. Can we? Do we know what it is that we want? And once we get it, are we wise enough to know that we have it? And are we worthy enough to hold on to it? That's what we'll be exploring on the podcast. I'm so happy you're here, and let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Have It All podcast. I am so very excited to have my good friend, Liz Wood, who is also a client of mine. We were talking recently about some of the really big decisions that she's made in her life before we started coaching together, and certainly like during our time together as well. And it just struck me that Liz really has made some major hard decisions along the way. And I thought it would be best to have you come on, Liz, and share about them. She is the realtor for anybody who is moving to New Orleans, which I think for me, you will be my future realtor, Liz. I'm so excited because you're like, as you're defining your, because I do so much like career and business coaching, and it's so fun once we get through like all of the gunk to like get into the business side of things. And that's where you are right now in your coaching with me. It was so fun to hear you describe yourself as a realtor to like people moving to New Orleans for the first time. I was like, that's going to be me. I'll be your client.
I'll be here.
So it's so reciprocal. So without further, she also has the most amazing blog. I'm going to go ahead and plug it right now, but don't leave the podcast to go look down the rabbit hole of her website because it's so good you won't want to stop. You won't come back to the podcast. It's called Roaming with Red, which of course you're a redhead, and we both have on red lipstick, which is fitting. I never wear this color. So how great that, of course,
I love it.
Of course I do for you. If you guys are seeing the video, we've talked a lot about the setup of her background because it was video. But thank you so much for coming on. And why don't you introduce yourself as you want to?
I think that was a great introduction. I'm very happy with it. I am Liz Wood. I am a constant work in progress. Change is my best friend. And I love sharing my stories, which is how Roaming with Red was born. I get to do that a lot in my real estate and hear other people's stories, their journeys. And it actually inspired me through their stories of moving to write about my travels. That's how it started. And then it has just exploded into every other topic that I could ever think of, and it's still going. So
I love that. And I want to point to something early on, because as you know, I've been redesigning my website and getting super kind of niched with how I coach people. And you have done the thing that is my favorite thing within having a career that you've had for a while that's pretty good, and you're frustrated and unfulfilled with it. You don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think you have done such a great job. And I'd love to have you share about how you've gone from like general realtor of all the things, buyers and sellers, right, to this very specific thing that I still have it in the notebook, right, of like when you said this is what it was, this declaration. And also you have a side, I'm careful to call things a side hustle, but like you have a passion and a hobby that also pays you with Roaming with Red, which I also want to hear about your note cards and the Christmas markets and like so much. And so I'm curious about your journey in particular with how you were dissatisfied perhaps or frustrated. I don't know which came first because we weren't working together at that time. And then how Roaming with Red came to be. Would you share about that?
I will. I had a very specific incident of a client. I was it was the during-ish the pandemic. And I had some clients who were raking me over the coals. It was a nightmare. For 6 months, I was helping them see properties, write offers, lowball ridiculous offers. I went out of town for 2 days to get away I should say 2 days in. They wrote an offer with another agent and completely told me that I am not worthy of the commission. And the agent acknowledged it was insane. And I was like, you know what? I need an outlet. Like, I can't quit real estate right now. This is my entire world and business, but I can do some writing, and I've always enjoyed writing. My initial blogs were really just sort of a diary of my travels. And it's evolved a lot. And my writing has gotten much better. My first newsletter that I ever put out, I mean, I was scared to death to put anything out there. I think I had like 30 subscribers. But all of this was because those particular clients represented all of the bullshit that I had put up with through my career. And they were like the people that got me to actually do something about it. There's always that straw. I mean, so Roaming with Red was born. I got my web designer who has done a beautiful job with my Liz Wood Realty website to start designing Roaming with Red. And I didn't really have much of a vision. I'm not a hugely visionary web designer person. So we just worked at it together, and it's evolved a lot. And the whole business has evolved tremendously in the last, I would say, year. This month in October was when I really went full force into monetizing it and getting much more serious about writing blogs as often as I could. I don't have a schedule. I don't do schedules well, but
well, that's great. I don't think that people need to.
Yeah, I don't
think
either.
that when you I've killed off so many businesses because I couldn't maintain a schedule that I thought I had to keep. And says who?
Right.
Like, but it's all so arbitrary, except like you take a class and they say do it weekly. And I'm like, but I hate weekly. Or, I do this podcast twice a week. And like, sometimes it feels like too much. It might be once a week soon. I don't know. I think what I want people to hear is that you just played around with it.
Yes. Until I did something that felt very good. I do consistently push blogs out, but I realized I can pull a blog from 3 months ago and my new people have no idea. And some of the old people just didn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, we think people are paying attention.
We think we are so, everybody's looking at Roaming with Red every day, all day. I mean,
well, and I love that as it's evolved, and I just want to point to a couple of things that you shared in that story. When people screw you over, or what, I mean, I'm always careful as a coach to even say that. I'm like, are they, it is perceived that way, right? It's a really good magnifier on what's not working. And it sounds like having all your eggs in this one basket didn't feel good.
right.
Right. And you probably, I would assert, had other parts of your life that were exactly the same in how you were being treated. Is that correct?
You know best.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was representative at that time of an extreme cleaning house with a lot of people in my life. Um, it was on my, like, so during the pandemic, I turned 40. So this was all like in the same summer.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
because we're the same.
Yeah. I was like, that would make sense. We're the same age. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember cooking my own dinner
Mhm.
for my husband, his parents, and my parents, and thinking
For your 40th?
for my 40th.
Oh,
I
no, no,
remember I
no.
cooked salmon.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What? Oh gosh, I wish we would have gotten together sooner. Okay.
I remember watching all of them and thinking, I'm never doing this again. This is insane. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how, but it was so normal up until certain things had happened. We also, I mean, a very, like, I've never spoken publicly about this, but we had also a few years before fostered and then adopted from the DCFS and then unadopted a child. It was a very unsafe space for me at my house. I got to a point where I felt very unsafe, and we had to make some very hard decisions. This is a very high level
Yeah.
discussion about it, but many people in this world know exactly what I'm talking about, and then many people who aren't have they couldn't fathom that I could do something like this.
Can we dive into that?
We can dive into it.
Okay. Okay, so let's just get the story straight. So the dinner that you had, the salmon that you were cooking on your 40th birthday was after this.
Like a month,
A month.
maybe
So
a
you
few
had
weeks.
gone through this really hard time. So I just want to make sure I have the story straight for everybody. You fostered and adopted a son,
A teenager.
a teenager, okay. And then how long was he with you?
He was with us about 2 years.
So you were his parent for 2 years, and then you undid the adoption.
We did. We reversed it.
Okay. That's a really big deal, and that's true. Like, I actually have not heard that. So can you share more about what that was like, how you got there, why you made that decision, what it's created in your life now?
I mean, obviously
Imagine.
heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
um my husband and I were not quite on the same page during the whole experience because um I was mostly targeted by the child, because he um had mother issues, and his dad always sort of swooped in when he wanted to, took him fishing. So the father figure was quite fun, and in our home not so much different.
Right.
I was the disciplinarian,
Yeah. Super fun.
rule follower, we have to do homework. So a lot of the manipulation took place when it was just the two of us, and it did get to a point throughout the years, the couple years, that I felt very unsafe with him in the house, not physically, but I found out he was lying about a lot of things that we would do, and or not do, and he was
Okay.
we would do, or not do, like feed him. And it was getting very scary to me that, like, what is he going to say
Yeah.
to somebody that could drive? Because already, the school that he went to, they were starting to wonder, I mean, are we just these like crazy abusive adoptive parents? I felt like I was insane. And I still have the therapist that I have now, and had before, who knew me. And I remember I would hide in my closet and talk to my therapist, and also think the only people that listen to me and believe me are people that I pay. like my therapist.
God.
It was an awful, no, because nobody can wrap their heads around what was happening. I mean,
Right.
it's an almost impossible thing to, you can't, no one could be empathetic because no one could actually put themselves in my shoes.
That's a really scary thing. Yeah.
It's an insane, like I felt like I was crazy for quite too long. So when the pandemic happened, it was actually the best thing that ever happened to us because my husband was then home all the time and
He
our
started-
child couldn't hide it any longer. So like the behaviors were coming out and it got really bad and he started to run away and we had to make the decision that because he had medication, he just was unsafe on his own, obviously. And we took him to the behavioral hospital and they kept him for 10 days. They released him because the system is very screwed up system and there's just not enough mental
There's just not enough.
yeah. And then he returned and started threatening things. And so we immediately, like that day, brought him back because his psychologist, I called her and I said, what do I do? And so she said, you have to immediately bring him back for these threats that he's making. So we go back, they send him to yet another hospital.
Oh my gosh.
5 hours away. And by the time it was time to pick him up, it was acute facilities. We refused. We said, we had talked about it and I said, I can't live like this anymore. I cannot live like this anymore. We never attached, we never bonded. I mean, it wasn't like raising from a baby of having a small child ever really love you. You know, he did not attach to us. He told us point blank, I would prefer to just live in your home and you leave me alone. And then when I turn 18, I'll leave. And I'm like, that's just not how this works here. So, again, I'm oversimplifying it, but maybe one day I'll write a book about the details of it. And which I did. I've read a lot of accounts and stories about other people who had lived through it. And you're basically giving up your entire life and sanity to sometimes for the sake of someone else. And usually nobody comes out winning.
Well, no.
He did get into a long-term program and lo and behold, we heard from him last year and he said he was doing much, much better. He needed mental health care 24/7 and he got it. And that was not something that we could provide in our home. We had a lot of love and resources, but we did not have 24/7 surveillance. And so it was the best decision. And I guess going back to the whole crux of this conversation, I'm not afraid to do hard things and very unpopular things because sometimes people do need hard things done to them, for them, on behalf of them, for yourself. And I was willing to do that. So I'm proud of what I did because it was a horrifically lonely place to be for a long time, but it was the start of my evaluation when I said, gosh, if I can like break up with a 13-year-old, what am I doing in all these adult relationships that are highly dysfunctional and dare I say abusive? So I took a hard look. I started to take a hard look and my 40th birthday was right after that. And I thought, this sucks. And this is not the life that I want to live for the long term.
Yeah. I think that while the story may not be relatable, of breaking up with a 13-year-old, I think some parents out there that have birthed children would like to break up with their 13-year-olds.
Right.
But what I do think is universal is the feeling of loneliness. And we have all had experiences of feeling like we're going crazy. I think they call it gaslighting now.
Yes.
You're just like, but wait, that's not like, I can remember, I do a lot of inner child work, and we've done a lot of that. And I do a lot in my own life. And I'm like, no, but I'm not crazy. And sometimes, especially in our childhood, depending on the parent, you are literally made to feel crazy.
Yes.
And that's really, really then hard to be out in the world and have people say, listen to your gut. What's your intuition say? And it's like, well, somebody said, no, bitch, don't listen to your intuition. You're crazy.
Yeah.
And where so much of our growth stops, because we're actually taught, because of somebody that's dysfunctional, that like your inner voice isn't right. And then it invalidates everything. And you have no North Star anymore. You have no internal compass when you're led to believe that you're crazy.
Yeah.
Or selfish or whatever, the rhetoric is. And I'm curious about what it took for you to make that decision. Like, because I know that couldn't have been easy.
It took, I reached out to some of the other people in the community of adoption of kids who had behavioral issues. And in some states, actually, I remember reaching out to a girl who said, has anyone ever unadopted a child and then readopted another one? And I was like, can I call you? Because like I need to understand what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, she was in the Northwest, so we don't have that here. I'm in Louisiana. And apparently you can unadopt, and there are things something called, I think it's called second adoption. And oftentimes, psychologically, the child associates the first adoptive parents with their own.
Oh.
It's a very dysfunctional,
yeah, I could see that
relationship.
For sure.
But when they've gone to a second home permanently, it's almost like a different person.
Yeah.
We don't have that here, but I wanted to understand it from her mouth. What are you talking about? And like, is this real? Does this actually happen?
Mm-hmm.
And she said yes. And she had a young child, like a 3-year-old, who they had to move. They were missionaries and they had to leave another country because this child was saying egregious things about them because she just didn't know what else to do. She was, they've kidnapped me. They're hurting me, all of these things. And to boot, she looked aesthetically very different from them.
Uh-huh.
So people were like, oh my gosh, do we need to help this child? And in the country they were in, if they take one child, they're taking all of them. And they had bio kids too. So they were like at risk of losing their children because of this child's lying. And so I had read and talked to enough people to know that I was probably going to be in for a very long, potentially risky life. And what I did know was that he was not going to miss us. He might have missed the stuff that he got, like, because we obviously could buy him nice shoes and clothes and send him to basketball camp and whatnot. But he was not attached to us in any way. And I was just thinking, like, he just needs help. And I can't do it. Like, I don't know what I therapy was not helping. You really don't receive any support. I mean, they say they will support you, but you also, and what I realized is that I would tell him, you have to be a willing participant too. Like you've got agency. You get
Mhm.
to choose now if you want that life or you want a new life. And he really just wasn't ready to let
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
we
go ahead.
know many people in our everyday life. My entire family could be an example. You hang on to the old ways so hard that it doesn't have to be to this extreme of my situation with this child that we adopted, but like if you're not ready to do it, you're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, and here's the thing that I'm really hearing is that like there were examples of you being in similar relationships, right, to this child,
Yes.
but it wasn't to this extreme.
Right.
And we will continue to repeat the wounds that have not healed.
Yes.
Like there was just an incident with Derek, my husband, and he took a client that I was like, you should not take that client. Like, I don't know why. I didn't have any real basis for it, except like, I just think he's a bad guy. Like I have young kids. So I'm like, he's a bad guy. That's all I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he was. And he bullied Derek. And Derek was bullied as a young child.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And he has several examples at work of people of older men that come after him, and I use the term bully because that's what he relates to it as, and I'm like, it sounds like they're just calling you out on your shit, but he relates to it like bullying because he becomes a child again.
Yeah.
So he just keeps being in relationship with guys, and I'm hoping that this was the worst and last one. But you can go and take a look at so many different situations that you were in. And then there was this one, and that's finally the tipping point where you're like, hey, actually, I'm not going to hide in the closet anymore talking to my therapist, afraid to be in my house, and then cooking all you jokers dinner on my birthday. Fuck that. And mama's had enough.
I'm done.
You're done.
Put a fork in me. Yeah, it was, and I mean, I can talk more lightly about it because it has been over 4 years since this has happened. I didn't think I'd ever be able to talk about it but I remember when I talked to that girl that I just referred to, I said, I don't understand how you're just so easily talking about this. She said, well, I'm years out of it. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
very far away from
Does
it.
feel.
Yeah, it just time, it's so annoying and cliche, but time heals everything.
It
It was
is
like,
so very annoying. I know.
I hate it because I'm like, but I don't want to believe it in this situation. I want it to be
Right.
like immediate. Um, but yes, I think that we do take like sometimes it takes a major slap in the face
Oh
or
yeah.
shake
100%. Yeah.
to do what you just said, which is like interrupt the pattern.
Yeah.
Where you're like, and that's, I mean, so fast forward less than a year after, well, no, not less than a year. So now I'm getting divorced. My husband and I that whole uh situation showed me a lot about who his character was. He's not a bad person, but partner wise, very not aligned with who I am and who I wanted to become. Well, he
Yeah.
was aligned with who I was because I was like, anybody who wants to mistreat me, come on in. You're wide open.
I think I'm so glad that you said that, because I mean, I come from a family of, I would say divorce, except my parents are still technically married. Let's just make things confusing. um, 20 years now. But a product of divorce for sure. Um, I just don't think that these things that we subscribe to as like failures, I'm using air quotes if you're listening right now, like failures, they're not failures. Like that wasn't a failed adoption. That was called not the right fit for any of you. Like I loved hearing that he's thriving, that he's getting the care that he needs because
Yeah.
you recognized and were strong enough and brave enough to say, I can't provide it. I remember early on in our real estate company, there were these clients that we really, really wanted. We went and looked at their house. We're like, we can totally do this. And then we took a step away and I got put on bed rest with our second. And I was like, we're not ready for that job. And I fucking said that to the clients. And they were like, that is so refreshing. I'm like, yeah, our business isn't there yet. Like our family is not able to provide 24-hour medical care and surveillance for you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make fucking sure that you get it.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Like, that's wonderful. And also, you, ex-husband, should be with somebody who's aligned with how you want to live your life. And it's not me.
Not me.
And oh, by the way, I've changed, you've changed. Well, maybe not, but I know too much.
Be real.
Yeah. But I love that you recognize, because I asked you that early on, like who was doing the changing, and you did. You've evolved. And so
And no, and it was proven through therapy, both of us, each of us, and then together, and then this very intense it's a organization that helps marriages in distress, and he did not want to complete the program. I mean, and it told me everything I needed to know. No, it confirmed what I already knew.
There you go. Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's like there's always a mic drop. There are several mic drops, but that especially, we are so quick to say like, oh, it tells me what I need to know. That's a bunch of bullshit. You already knew it. You just needed some confirmation.
You need the slap in the face. I do. I'm like, laughing hard.
Like, that's why you chose me as your coach. I'm constantly like slapping you around.
Why are my cheeks always red?
Well, because here's the thing, like, I'm even like writing copy for a new website, and I literally was like, can I say this? Like, your job's not the problem, it's you.
Yes.
Somebody was like, that might not be like where people are at yet. I was like, but it is. It's you.
And it's so refreshing to.
I think so, but we are simpatico that way.
Yeah, and I love like the more agency and accountability you can have, the more your life is just like abundant and bountiful, and it's like, wait, I can do something about it.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, you always have choice in how you look at something. Now, you might not have choice in like cancer or jail or whatever it is that's horrible that you're going through. But I remember very, very clearly hearing Nelson Mandela's story of like being on Robben Island, and they didn't have him because no one can take his mind, right? Like that is an extreme situation. But because of that kind of meditative quality, him recognizing that he's not his circumstances, he came out and became president. Like it's so incredible, the power that we actually have, the agency that we hold to transform our relationship to what's happening, right? It doesn't mean it's not happening, but how you relate to it is what determines suffering or not suffering.
Yeah. Even the choice when you feel that you're not in control, even the choice to either continue to stay bitter.
Yeah.
Like that is a choice. I mean, it's hard sometimes.
100%.
I even find myself ruminating about
Name it.
marriage and whatever,
Yeah.
but I'm quick to say, okay, let's think of all the good stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a lot.
Something that has been working, because I've noticed myself in loops. I think this is what you're speaking to, is when you go to that default tape of like that persistent complaint about your mom or your dad or your boss or your husband or your kids or whatever, your friends. I've been playing a tape recently in my marriage, and I'm like, this is so boring. So I just
so boring, right?
want people to try on. And it gives it it almost makes it funny, which has helped me to move through some old patterns of this is so boring, Anna. Don't you have a different story you want to tell? This one again? You've already seen this episode. Change the show, girl.
Yeah. There was a really good, I just listened to a episode on Mel Robbins' podcast about her and her husband and they weathering 30 years of marriage, which is remarkable.
Yep.
And how they really the whole premise was bringing 3 things that they learned about the relationship to the table. And you have to cut the reel sometimes, just stop and get into a different. Now when you can't, I felt like it was like that literal reel movie where it would I felt like that's where I was with my marriage, because there are people who really don't want to change.
Yeah.
Or think that their micro incremental changes are it's too much for them. And I was like, I don't want to torture you every day by me bursting with excitement and joie de vivre, and you're just I gotta go to work and I don't want to live like that. There are certain subscriptions I think that we want to live by, and mine is waking up happy, loving the coffee that I drink. And there were things that I didn't grow up with, appreciating things, the hardwood floors. I mean, literally my feet, I walk around barefoot because I love that it's just these little things that I have developed over the years. And I wanted to either be able to do that on my own or share it with somebody who was enthusiastic and excited. And I know that's sort of a tangent, but
no, I actually think that's a perfect place to wrap up the podcast, because I think that we look for these big moments, right?
Yeah.
You shared this big decision that you made, but it was all kinds of little things that led to this big decision. And it is the little things. It is I really get it, because I have a thing with hardwood floors as well. But I mean, for me right now, our youngest crawls in bed with us in the morning, and I'm drinking coffee and attempting to journal, and he's wanting to hold my hand while he drinks a bottle. And I just look at Derek and he looks at me, and we're like, this is everything.
Yeah.
And we'll just sit there as long as he's still. And lets us sit there with him,
Yeah.
And it feels so good. And so, and I've been in a relationship that it was not that way. And I just remember always seeking that feeling of being excited, whether I'm by myself or with somebody, but certainly not somebody that's either neutral or negative. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even want neutral at this point. I'm like, fuck neutral. I'm interested in like watery eyes. Are you okay? Yeah, you're getting teary over there too. Like, this is, yeah. And I also didn't grow up with it. So I'm really clear about having that agency and creating it right now.
Yeah.
And it's not a given. It takes something to create it. It's
It
not
takes,
automatic.
it takes a lot of that frontal lobe.
Yeah, it does. And I think, but see, that's the thing where, even the name of this podcast, Have It All. I just met somebody in the park recently, and I said something about like, oh, I have a podcast. It's called Have It All. And she just automatically, this is why I named it this, said, oh, but you can't have it all at the same time. And I was like, man, that was in one breath. Right. And I said, I just don't believe that's true. I would have you consider that you have it all, but you just are in a season that you've not experienced before. And it's recognizing the season that you're in. And is this, and we so frequently already have it. And we just can't see.
Or we don't have it and we have to go find it and fight for it. And
Yeah.
that's scary.
It is. But as somebody on the other side, which I think you are there, how does it feel on the other side?
It's the most amazing and peaceful place I've ever been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like I kind of feel like I'm in an out of body experience many days. Like I just look around and I have this new house that I renovated and everything.
While in Paris, by the way.
And after.
That you were given a place in Paris after like, wanting to go, but it didn't work out. I mean,
I have good friends.
You're in alignment.
Yeah.
You're in alignment.
Yeah. And I think it's important for every single person to know that you can do that. And B, it's worth it. Every moment, every hardship, every tear, sobbing, feeling of loneliness, it's all temporary. And you end up on the other side looking back thinking, how did I do this? But gosh, it's just amazing.
But it feels so good, right?
It feels so good. But and the other thing is that I seek out you, I seek out my therapist. Like I don't do this alone.
Yeah. That would definitely be the third part of what you just said. Like, I didn't either. I still don't I never don't have a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always have a coach. Said it different, right? Like I think that it's really lonely when you do it alone.
And you don't know what you don't know. Somebody else, you point it in the time, just to plug you, because I will right now. In the time that we started to work together, I struggled greatly with self-worth, not confidence. I was very confident with a lot of things in my life, but my worthiness was very low. I feel like I do deserve all of the good things, and I'm leaning into it. And I catch myself thinking, oh, maybe that's just too much. And then I think, but who are you? Get away. You are not welcome here anymore.
Yeah.
You like the investment in oneself, which that is what this is.
Yeah.
You will never understand what it's like to be unless you do and make the investment in yourself. I'm not saying like run out and find a coach, but kind of run out and find a coach. Like
I think so. Obviously, I do it for a living, but it's like I literally cannot believe, and I get like super. I have worked my whole life to do what I do, and hearing you say that is everything. Like,
it's the truth.
It has not always felt good to see things that people are doing that I know aren't working. And I know it's a self-worth thing. It always is, right? and to not have like agency to say it, and to have to create a career where like I felt like I could say it. And even still, sometimes I'm like, oh, she's not going to like this, but like she's also paying me, so here we go, like I'm going to say it, right? Because I assume that like people are ready to hear the hard things to change their lives. And so hearing you say that just is everything to me, because like I pinch myself every day that I get to do this work.
Keep doing it.
and then have this podcast be able to share stories of like, I mean, my guest last week, she had a really hard fucking time, and people just see the end result.
Yeah.
And forget about all the muck and the gunk that you've gone through in order to get to like having this life of freedom and agency and all the things that you shared about. It's not without effort and constant work. That's boring.
Nobody, I don't think anybody who achieves greatness, great things, and greatness is subjective, whatever that means to you. It's like success.
Yeah.
Without having a big story to tell.
Yeah.
And I want to know, like, I love listening to story. I mean, I'm a podcast junkie of like people's stories, because I want to know what people have been through.
I can't wait to be on your podcast one day.
I know. I can't.
But we're saving that for our coaching session next week.
I'm ready.
Okay. So thank you, Liz. This has been amazing. Everybody can find Liz at Roaming with Red at Lizwood Realty, which they will be linked up soon if they are not already, so that people know that she's way more than just a realtor and way more than just a blogger. And for anybody who wants to know things about making those hard choices, I suggest you follow her. But she's also an expert in the European Christmas markets, trips to Paris, New Orleans, like nobody's business. You have a trip coming up on Valentine's weekend, which I'm expecting myself to be on as well. And just all kinds of good things. And for anybody who's looking to move to New Orleans and is not from there, there's nobody better than Liz. So I have to be buying a home from you one day in the future. Let's just put that into the ether.
I love this.
Yeah. Okay. I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, everybody. And I'll see you next episode with a little bit more on this. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you as we expand in the world. What is it that we want? Do we believe that we can have it all? I hope this episode gave you some insights and some things to think about, and most importantly, some actions to go and take in your own life. If one of those actions is reaching out to me, I'm so thrilled and honored. You can always find me on my website, annakmorris.com, and you can always send me an email, hello@annakmorris.com. DM, texting, if you have my number, any of that is great too, and I would love to be in touch with you and help you have it all. I love you, and thank you so much for being here.